Hey everybody, Dmitriy here with Serg Supply, and this is the first video of our how-to series about installing your foundation wiring kit. Let's get started. It's no surprise that we sell wiring kits. We sell a lot of wiring kits, and depending at the time you're watching this video, we probably sell more wiring kits for those watching later. But of the wiring kits we sell, the most popular was always the full build wiring kit, but it didn't quite include everything. And then we released the foundation kit, and that one has all the bells and whistles. So first, let's talk a little bit about the foundation kit and why we made it and what the purpose of getting wiring for that is in your use case. The foundation kit is really in the name. It's supposed to be a good foundation for your build, and this is meant a couple different ways. Number one, it's a solid foundation for anything you build on top of it, much like a house, like a concrete pad. So we don't want to build a wiring kit that can just support our portable power system. We want one that can support that and the add-on battery and the Renogy system and the Victron or the Dakota Lithium or the Red Arc, anything. We want a foundation that can take any kind of punishment and dish out the power you might need regardless of your power system. For so long, those two things, pre-wiring and power system, we're married together, and we decided it's time to file with the state attorney and create a very beneficial divorce of those two very expensive items in your benefit. So some of the benefits of a foundation wiring kit is that it's more than just the wire you need. We like to run service drops. We like to call them to common areas where you might need wiring later. A great example of this is we'll give you wiring from your dimmer to your overhead cabinets, whether or not you have overhead cabinets, because you may not need or want them now, but maybe one day in the future you will add those lights to your van build or add those cabinets, and then you don't have to rip the whole thing apart to run that wire. Another example being if anybody has their foundation kit, including a larger low voltage wire to feed to a Blue Sea on the passenger side, sure, maybe your kitchen's on the driver's side for now, but later you might want a passenger side kitchen. And again, you don't want to rip apart your whole van to run that wire. It'd be cool to have that wire dropped, terminated safely in the wall for later you. Same thing goes with high voltage for GFCIs. And above all else, it's about future-proofing for power inputs, more so, I would say, than outputs. As far as power inputs go, for the smaller systems, you really only see shore power and maybe solar if it can handle it. For the larger portable systems, like the Delta Pro or the Blue Eddies, they have alternator chargers, and those are really cool, but sometimes they're throttled down to 3 to maybe 800 watts, which is, we'll get into that in a later video in this series. And then the next step up would be something like a Renogy, Red Arc, Victron that can handle ungodly currents coming from your alternator or your dual alternator back to your power system. So our thought is, why not put together a power system or pre-wiring kit that can handle all of them? And that's exactly what this kit does. Yes, it might be oversized for you in this current stage of your build, but it might just be perfectly sized for you at a later stage in your build. And we will talk a little bit more about wire gauging and sizing here in a second, but the last point I want to drive home is that we see your van conversion, like you should, as an investment. It's not just a fun purchase or a place to sink your money and watch it burn at the end of the day. This is something that you may need to resell later. And our philosophy here is the best van you could purchase. Let's say you are buying a van for yourself and you have two vans, similar pricing, one slightly more expensive. Typically you'd want to go for the one that's cheaper, but what if I told you that the more expensive van, the one you're trying to resell, comes with a full catalog list of every wire that's in the van, a map of every place that that wire is terminated, and a guarantee that a leading brand in the industry put together all of that wire and gave you all of their own install instructions so that you can purchase this van with the knowledge of knowing what's behind the walls and knowing, more importantly, that it's done correctly, done safely, and you don't have to pucker up and cross your fingers every night when you go to bed and turn on that air conditioner. So at the end of the day, we like to treat your van as an investment, and this kit allows you to do the same. All right, getting started. So if you bought the foundation wiring kit, it's because either you know nothing about wiring and you're extremely brave, or you know a little bit, you know enough to be dangerous and you're willing to learn, and that's perfect. You don't need to be an expert to install this kit. This guide that is attached as a PDF has everything you should know or need to know to do this, and also we're available as a resource. In this video series, we will actually go in the vans, show you some stuff, dig a little bit deeper past what the PDF might offer you, and hopefully give you the tools, skills, and confidence to pull this off yourself using some basic tools. Speaking of tools, let's go over what you're going to need to get this done. The first category is just some basic wiring stuff. We use a crimper, a wire stripper. We use either a heat gun or a torch if you're feeling really brave, just the basics to connect stuff. For the larger stuff, you may need a lug crimper. You can get like the hand ones. The largest wire that might come in this kit is 1 or 2/0 for ground. That's about it. Everything else is just small strand wire with heat shrink, lugs, spades, and all the rest. The next thing is going to be for the cutting. You're going to use a 1-inch hole saw. If you want to buy 1-inch plastic or rubber grommets on Amazon, that works great too. We got to protect those wires as they pass through, and of course something for the rust coating. So get yourself, we use POR 15, but you can go on Amazon, look up rust coating, get a little cotton dauber and lather it on. But again, something we'll go over in this video in a little bit more detail later. The next part is some troubleshooting stuff. I like to recommend getting a voltmeter or an outlet tester, GFCI tester, but that's going to be after the kit's installed, your outlets are cut, and of course you might need a jigsaw multi-tool to cut in your outlets and things like that. Aside from those items, a self-tapper, a large self-tapper, we recommend a magni-coated 5/16 self-tapper for the ground wire to chassis, and then the rest are just basic tools I'm sure you have laying around in the house. So if any of these came up and you don't have them, jump on Amazon or see if your local Walmart, Ace Hardware, Home Depot, something has them. They're pretty easy to get, relatively inexpensive. Let's move right along. There's absolutely no shot I'm gonna memorize every wire that comes in here, so I'm gonna read off a list here of what's included with this kit at the current moment. Keep in mind, depending on when you're watching the video, we might actually add more, change things. This is a new kit based off recommendations from customers, what we do on our builds, but things are always subject to change. So first and foremost, power for your diesel or gas heater, power to your exhaust fan, max air fan, power to your air conditioner, which you will help us understand whether you're doing low voltage, high voltage, and we'll rate it appropriately. There's power to a passenger USBs, driver USB, rooftop 12 volt for the scene light guys out there, dimmer to your ceiling lights, dimmer to your passenger upper cabinets, dimmer to your driver upper cabinets, power to your dimmer itself. And then we move on to high voltage. We have our driver side GFCI, passenger GFCI, and then our shore power cable. And last but not least, there's a few specialized items. DC charging cable, power system ground cable, 30 amp shore outlet, solar gland, and your double dimmer. Good God, we got them all. Let's talk a little bit about sizing now. Now, I highly recommend you look at the sizing chart before you buy the kit, because we base these lengths and gauges off of commonly run spans and also commonly used appliances, an example being your max air fan. So this kit was designed for a max air fan, and at this distance, even though the gauge might seem big, because of that length of distance, it's appropriate. Now, you might not be installing a max air fan. You might have the Pneumatic Arc or some other brand that uses lower voltage. In my personal opinion, there's nothing wrong with oversizing low voltage wiring, but you don't want it to be undersized. So please go through your appliance list, double check everything. We use a marine grade calculator from ABYC. Just Google ABYC calculator, and you can put in the wire gauge, the wire run, which, mind you, when you're doing DC, if it's only 5 feet away, double it because it's going there and back. So do 2 times, 5-foot run, 10-foot wire, okay? And then you put in the current, and of course, voltage drop 3%. The wire we use, 105 degrees Celsius up to 600 volts. That should be enough information to get you the tools you need to run the calculator and make sure your wiring size is safely rated. The majority of the wiring for the low voltage is either 12 or 14 gauge, depending on the amperage and run. And then of course there are exceptions. An example being the alternator charger we love to run in 4 or 6 gauge. Lately it's been 4 gauge because we want to pull the full force of 50 plus amps out of the alternator. But this will depend on your vehicle, which alternator charger you get, and 4 gauge may not even be enough. If you have a dual alternator or you want to run dual Orions, you may want to go larger. So again, ABYC calculator, figure out the length, run it in, calculate it, get the right size wire. Air conditioners is another one. I understand that most air conditioners in the market can run on 12 gauge or even 14 gauge wire on a 15 amp breaker. That's all good and well on paper, but we don't like to cut corners and we don't like to dance with the devil here. So instead of doing some salsa, we oversize our wires to 10 gauge, handle up to 30 amps. And of course, the length will depend on where you put your AC unit. Same goes with 12 volt air conditioners. Sure, you may be able to pull off a 1 gauge or 4 gauge if you're doing 20 24, 48 volt. But we go big or we go home. We run this, I believe at the time, either 1 gauge or 1/0. This is all things that are subject to change depending on your build. Again, it's a template to fit most vans, not every van. If you need changes, we'll happily make them for you. Just let us know. At the time that this kit was built, we ran all of our high voltage in 12 gauge, slightly oversized for up to 20 amps, but we switched our GFCIs, to 15 amp maximum. So now we can safely run 14 gauge for just about everything except air conditioner. And if you haven't added a heater for water, we'd like to run 10 or 12 for that, depending on the water heater you're running. And of course, solar, 10 gauge, that's the kind of the industry standard for all the glands, and we wouldn't recommend more than 30 amps of solar input. If you need to run something bigger, you can do multiple glands, different grids, another MPPT, whatever. You should be good to go on that. And that kind of wraps up wiring, gauge, sizing. And remember folks, you have a table that will come with your order, or you can reference this guide or this video for posterity, and you should know exactly the lengths, gauges, sizes, and types of wires running through your van at all times. Before I get into the technical how-to of installing things, the last thing I need to talk about is fusing and protection. If you guys already know everything there is to know about overcurrent protection, you can just skip this video. And I want to remind you, I'm not an electrician. This is not official advice. This is best practice that we do here in the shop. You can use it or not. This is not technical advice by any stretch of the imagination. So please do your own research, fact check your stuff. But if you want to skip some steps, maybe circumvent some ChatGPT nonsense, you can just watch through the rest of this section and absorb what you want. So fuses, let's start with that. Fuses are really nice. They're compact, they're cheap, they're small, they cost pennies on the dollar, and they're usually, or at least we really only use them for low voltage. Now I'm referring mainly to these automotive fuses called blade fuses you might see inside your vehicle or your Blue Sea or something. They're the little guys. And we really don't recommend running anything over 20 amps on these, although those Blue Seas can handle more. If it requires more than 20 amps, it probably requires some more serious thought. So don't go hard, just go home when it comes to blade fuses. If you have higher current stuff, like some of our Renogy systems will use MIDI or ANL fuses. I'm sorry, I think Victron also uses those. Those are just big old fuses. I think we go up to 300 amps on those. They all generally work the same. Fuses are a one-time use. You push them too hard, they explode, they pop. For the larger fuses, they get quite hot, so keep that in mind for ventilation. I think like up to 150 degrees on some of these MIDI or ANL fuses. But on the blade fuses, they just pop and they're done, so keep an extra set. And that kind of concludes fuses. Rule of thumb, if it's low voltage and it's relatively low current, fuses are the way to go. If you don't think it's ever gonna blow or you can feel like you can rely on something, fuses are great, but it's a one-time use. If you want something that's a little bit more repeatable, we're gonna talk about breakers next. Breakers are really cool. We use a lot of breakers, but we use them for low voltage and high voltage. If you're gonna do high voltage breakers, I would highly recommend sticking to UL listed only. Don't go cheap with the Chinese Amazon stuff and wonder why your breakers don't go off. But let's talk about low voltage real quick. Our alternator charging cable, our air conditioners for low voltage, the stuff that's using high amp outputs, we put overcurrent protection on everything. We put 2 layers of overcurrent protection on everything. Example being our Victron Lynx distributor will have a big old fuse on it before it goes to our Blue Sea, but even before that, we put it through a 70 amp breaker usually, and then it gets to the Blue Sea. The cool thing about the breakers is I can press a button and release it so that I can either troubleshoot, work on stuff, isolate things. More importantly, if I push it too hard and it opens up, I can just reset it and I don't have to take things apart and replace components. That's why I love breakers. Same thing for the high voltage, whether it's for a GFCI, for an air conditioning unit, or you just want to service the stuff, those high voltage breakers are the way to go. Again, I would highly recommend UL listed only. Don't go cheap. And the last middle ground is actually PV. They technically use the high voltage breakers, but that's because solar's a different monster. It hovers somewhere in la land between low voltage and high voltage. But that's one of those things you don't want to raw dog and just go wire straight to power system. You want to have overcurrent protection on those as well. Our foundation kit does not include overcurrent protection, but I always like to talk about it before we get into the wiring. Now let's talk about exceptions when you don't need overcurrent protection. There are no exceptions. You should always have overcurrent protection, except maybe, I think some of these BEGs say like, hey, if it's the wire's 27, 28 gauge, tiny stuff, and you're doing under an amp, maybe you don't need a fuse. Yeah, whatever. There's an argument to be made there. But anything over an amp, you should always have overcurrent protection. It's up to you whether or not you're going to use fuses or breakers, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to use good quality stuff or cheap crap that might burn your van down. If you're looking for brands you can trust, I would look for things that are marine grade, look for Blue Sea, look for UL listed. That's kind of the name of the game for us. As far as fuse and breaker position, this part's kind of tough. The rule of thumb, at least for us, I know some manuals will say you want within 18 inches of a power source. We like to say within 7 or maybe even less if you can help it. For batteries and big stuff, you can use a battery terminal fuse. We use them for our Victron and Renogy's if we can, otherwise MIDI or ANL. But yeah, you want to keep it as close as you can to the power source. So a practical example of this, guys, is if you're running your alternator charging wire, there's quite a bit of action that happens between where it connects to your battery and then 18 to 25 feet later at your power system. You don't want to have your breaker at the very end of the food chain where the heat's all building up in the front. You know, if you have any kind of issues up there at the front near your battery, you want it to stop there. You don't want that to get barbecuing before this guy even knows he's invited to the party. So keep it close. Most cases for the really low current, low voltage stuff, you do what you can. And honestly, sometimes like we'll run a reading light wire up to, you know, from a switch. And then a customer tells us later, I actually want another reading light. And our options are, do we rip out the entire van and gut everything and add another wire to our Blue Sea? Or if the main line coming in can support the additional current, we can just do like an inline little 3 amp fuse or something. And as long as it's safe and there's a fuse there, you should be good to go. So I guess I can't iterate this enough. You should always have overcurrent protection. We always do 2 layers of overcurrent protection for everything, every individual component. And then the big thing that gives power to those individual components also has overcurrent protection, and you should do the same. If you have more questions on it, let us know. I'm here as a resource, we're here as a resource, and that kind of concludes part 1 of this video series. It's just basically boring informational stuff, but also very, very important if you care to learn what you need to know to do this safely. In the next part of this, we are actually gonna get into the wiring itself. We'll talk about shore power, talk about grounding, DC-DC charging, and then I think in a later part, we'll get into all the craziness about running the wires, best practice there. So thanks for watching this introductory video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you're curious, you wanna learn more, and you're interested in watching the next video, just head to the Learn side on our website. You can enter your email there, and then we'll send you a link to the next video, PDF, or any other educational resource that you wanna use free of charge.